Hi, Tiny Hen's Big Dreams, and here in southern Ecuador. We have now 9 years of every sort of crazy configuration, and we've come to realize what research proves out is a little bit of space actually really helps the relationship. So we just did our house video, which was our first update on our house video, and going through, we're showing the plans, and I explained that this is my bedroom and this is Elizabeth's bedroom. The question comes up, and it's come up before in our life of, do you guys have separate bedrooms? Yes. And there's a long story behind that in many parts, and it actually works out really well. And it turns out that there's a ton of evidence and studies for being slight bit of distance for a longer marriage. So this goes back 9 years.
How long we've known each other?
I know, it's like forever. Let's see. So I was living in the bus. You have to see the bus. 1957 Greyhound. Beautiful old beast. Totally converted to an RV. But I lived in a bus in the woods. Right.
Yes, you did.
I did.
Yes,
She had to
you
tell
did.
her mom that.
That was a fun conversation.
So when we met, Craigslist, funny enough, which was sort of an accident, which is its own funny story, not for here. She was living in, gosh, what was it, like an hour away?
An hour plus, depending on where you were.
Hour plus.
Yeah.
Long drive. So we were dating, and there's this huge like hour plus, and
I had like this obnoxiously large house that really I didn't need that much, but it's just kind of what I fell into. And he had like the tiny bus, which is like, it could not have been more really different.
240 square feet, which I have to give a shout out to. It is now a 5-star Airbnb at the Donkey Lodge in Southern Virginia. Lovely place.
We'll put a link.
It's worth it. Okay. So we started out there. Then she moved closer to the train apartment.
Yeah.
Above a yoga studio.
Yeah.
And literally,
like the intersection of the train lines.
The Burlington Northern Railroad. There. Now,
like across the street. It's right there.
The problem was at the main railroad crossing. So what do they do at the crossings? Ding, 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 screech.
And I also had a 2-year-old at that time, which he thought it was really cool at first. I thought it was kind of okay at first. It was literally the only apartment in the entire area that I could get. I'm like, oh, this is what we've got.
Oh my God, the horn.
It was horrible.
The horn pointed at her like living room window.
It's terrible.
And yeah.
Oh my gosh, it's terrible.
It's so bad. Okay.
But it got me closer to him, and that was the entire goal. That has been the goal since we met, is just shorten the distance, because
we want to be together.
Yeah, the hours of driving back and forth late at night, weird times, around each other's schedule, around kids' schedules, around
not always safe.
So got me closer.
Okay. So from there became, now I'm still living, so where I was living in the bus was at a recreational RV park, which there's a weird loophole to where you can basically live in the parks, even though you're not supposed to. It's supposed to be like a temporary thing, but there's this loophole that where if you have an RV, you can just live in the park system. It costs you $50 a month, like all expenses included. It's kind of an interesting deal. So that's where I was living, because why not? So she buys a fifth wheel. And
well, at this point, you weren't living there. At this point, you had already moved to the nursery. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that was where my first trailer was.
So I moved to the nursery. Oh, that's right.
Yep. It all kind of happened sort of at the same time.
So I was manager of a plant nursery. Cool place, very pretty, lots of room, so I could park on site.
And then we sort of ended up working out a verbal agreement that I could move into the old, questionable fifth wheel. Was it fifth wheel? No, it was just I don't remember if it was fifth wheel or a trailer.
No, it's just a big trailer.
It's your that was already on site.
24-foot, like, recreational sort of trailer. And it actually wasn't that old. It was It was like 12 years old or something versus my like
It just
60-year-old bus.
was perhaps not made as well.
Not made as
It
well.
had nothing but problems. But we turned it into something livable for a while. So I lived there, and that was finally, we were close. We parked like this.
We had them literally
Fantastic.
like in a corner, and then in between, there was this little curvy path through some
Asian pear trees.
3 Asian pear trees and dandelions, and there's this beautiful little path between our doors in the dandelions.
All coincidental. This was not something we planned.
Nope.
This was just where there was to park. The trailer was already there, I think.
Yeah.
So it was just what happened, and it was lovely for all of 3 weeks, a month.
Yeah,
something like that.
Unfortunately, the situation devolved.
Life happens.
The owner of the place had a an end of life mental degradation. Things got weird.
This was perhaps our first experience together of verbal agreements with people not always working out. One of many. So he left. He took the bus and went back to the RV park.
Right.
And I was sort of stuck because we had no way of moving the trailer. We also didn't own the trailer.
He had promised it, like, oh, you can have it, but then he
you can't live here.
Then he forgot about that because now
it was a lot.
We don't know.
I could not stay there, and I could not take the trailer, and therefore I was sort of potentially homeless. It was a bit of a strange time, which led me to finding my second trailer, which is a whole other story.
Okay, so that's the Terry.
I loved the thing, honestly.
It was great. It was a well-built trailer.
It was a well-designed trailer too. You see a lot where it's just terrible design. This one actually worked relatively well for me. Once we figured out that I legally owned it, which was its own ordeal.
Now, interesting to our entire perspective of us building a house is we have lived in all these crazy, small, weird spaces, things, trailers. You learn to maximize your space. You learn what is really important, what is not important. There's, I would go to see new trailers, and like, you have all this useless space in the middle, but where it's critical, you have like, it's cramped, or you're missing, like, you have nowhere to put shoes.
Oh, that was a big one in the bus that we had to finally solve. Those little things that you might not think about until you live in a tiny space. And you're like, well, where do I put this thing? Where do I do this thing? How do I manage this?
So we get her into the same recreation park where I was at, which I ended up working for. And then now we were, I don't know, 150 feet apart.
Managed to get a spot close enough.
Right. So, okay, it's pretty close. This is pretty sweet. And then one day, because I was a maintenance guy there, I took the tools of yard destruction and I just blazed through the little bits of woods that were between us, and I cut a sneaky path.
That was great.
That nobody else knew about or could use, just to connect our
which was great.
Our houses again.
Just run through the forest on the sneaky path.
It
was kind of fun, honestly.
Some fun memories.
It was a good time. It was a good time.
It was a good time. All right.
And actually, I realized at one point I ended up having to move across the park because they closed that whole section of park.
That's right. They're doing
that was terrible.
Power upgrades.
That was the garlic lesson. Just in case you ever move, you decide you're gonna, go traveling with an RV of any kind, or you're just going to move it and you have food in it. These are lessons he knew, but he didn't really tell me because I hadn't done this yet.
Man strength to close the jar of minced garlic.
No, don't just close the jar of minced garlic. Get the fridge closed somehow.
Also that.
No one told me to close the fridge. I didn't know what I was doing. I never moved one of these full of my things.
My bus, the people who built it, all the drawers and things had locks. It just they auto locked.
Yeah.
So
my fridge did not auto lock. I'm like, what's that noise? What's that noise? And then when I got back in, I'm like, oh, it reeks like garlic. So the jar of garlic had left the fridge and opened everywhere. Lessons in life.
All right. After that, where are we?
We are moving into the bus. Me moving into the bus.
Right. So, at some point, we decide to sell her trailer, and she's going to move into the bus. Now, this is the first time where we have cohabitated.
I mean, gosh, we spent endless amount of time together.
We spent all of our time.
But our stuff had not.
Right.
mingled
And we slept separate. But otherwise, like, we literally have spent
all the time.
every single
Like,
minute of every
yeah.
day of everything, unless one of us was working, together.
Yeah.
Now, the way the bus was set up, in the back is 2 single beds.
Twin beds.
Twin beds.
Yeah.
Twin beds with a little tiny aisle in the middle. The whole thing is only 7 foot wide, so they're there, and it's a little tiny aisle, so it's
real cramped.
It's snug. Now, it's lovely for one person. You could also set it up to have a large single bed, but I actually enjoyed the single. I thought it was just fine. 2 people who have different sleep cycles, wake each other up. I don't know.
Oh, just say it. You snore.
Snore. I've never heard it.
He snores. He snores. But I had also had a workplace injury at that point. So I was in a lot of pain. So sleep was kind of a major priority for me. And it was basically, if we share space, neither of us are going to sleep.
Yeah, it wasn't.
It was just never going to work. We weren't going to either one be able to sleep enough or continue to like each other.
And there's studies that actually proved out, like, what happened to us was, like, if there's a bad night's sleep, then the relationship suffers. If there's a problem in the relationship, then sleep suffers, and it snowballs. Length of marriage was directly proportional. Like, the closer they were, like, if there's a married couple in a single bed, like, the marriage is short, like, by the numbers. And they get up to a queen bed, well, okay, it gets much longer. When they get into, like, separate beds in one room versus 2 whole rooms or 2 houses, all of a sudden, like, the average marriage was the entire life of the people. I'm like, well, that's...
Which is honestly kind of the opposite of what people seem to assume. It's always like, oh, there must be something wrong in your marriage if you're sleeping separately. I'm like, no, we're good.
Yeah, we're sleeping.
We're just doing what works for us.
All right. So
enter the marshmallow.
Right. So that wasn't wasn't working so great. Now, I had this trailer that had an interesting storied life on its own. It started as a boat trailer, which got turned into a utility trailer with sides, which got turned. I found a camper shell off, like, an old, like, full-size Ford truck. So I put the camper shell on the trailer and, like, built it up, modified, painted it real nice, rebuilt the whole thing. It was all spiffy. So now I have it was about 6.5, 7 foot wide by, like, 4.5 feet wide inside and 8 feet long. And it was the camper shell was a fiberglass, like, heavy duty kind of thing. It had sliding windows, and I painted it white, insulated the top.
I don't know why we called it the marshmallow. I don't remember when that happened, but at some point it got dubbed marshmallow.
I think it's when I painted it white. It used to be, like, orange and blue.
Oh, that's right. I forgot that.
And I used the RV roof paint, which has an insulation of reflective quality.
I remember that.
And I painted the whole thing white, and we're like, puffy white paint. It looks like a marshmallow.
It just became marshmallow.
But it's kind of like a hard tent. So she's like, well, I'll just go sleep in that so I don't kill you in your sleep.
And the kid was, God, he was 4 at this point, and he slept in the bus on the couch, which sounds ridiculous.
Is in the front.
But man, he loved it. He got his cozy little couch, and everything was great.
Yeah, it was an old mattress cut down to be a couch. It was a foam mattress.
So in case anyone wonders, like, where was the child at this point?
No,
he was there. He existed. He was super happy.
He was super comfy. So she took the marshmallow. So now we're close.
And we parked the marshmallow strategically, as close to the door as possible, because the bathroom is still in the bus. Which was really the only downside of the marshmallow for me. Otherwise, I loved the thing. It was fantastic.
Oh yeah, you're just totally, like, safe, secure. It's like your own space.
Cozy.
You just have to sort of open the door and then dive in.
You can't stand up. But do you need to stand up when you're sleeping? No, it was cozy. So, it was like a bunk bed.
In that configuration, we moved from the RV park to a different RV park. We at one point had the whole RV park to ourselves for the winter. That was neat. Because they closed in the winter.
And that, when you're talking about the bus, which was all windows, and the marshmallow, which was kind of an odd thing for me to be sleeping in. It was nice to not have anyone staring at you and wondering what you're doing and who you are. And
there's nobody around. So we went from there we moved to Colorado because I became allergic to the trees we were living in. Like, we had to leave. So I moved out with a good to a friend of mine had a place out there. He was working. He goes, hey, you should come and work here. Like, well, there's none of those trees there, and you're a cool friend, and I like you, and I trust you. So shit, yeah, I'll move.
And we had the ability to just sort of move because we had a bus and a marshmallow, and we could just go, and our home would come with us.
We're on a roll.
Which
Let's
was
go.
awesome. That was fun.
Fun memories. So we moved to Colorado, which we stayed in a traditional, like, kind of at the edge of town trailer park.
That was
sketchy.
It was not maybe our most fond memories. I genuinely wished for a house at that point.
There was
It was a lot.
There was stuff that went on around there. It was
I'll recommend.
Never called the cops so many times in my life.
Hey, there was a small tornado in the trailer park, which could not be more cliche. And I'm there, and I'm like, what is going on? What is happening? But the nice thing was I was in the most secure vehicle or structure in that place.
Oh yeah.
The bus wasn't going anywhere.
It was a fortress. It was great. So we left Colorado, bought a house sight unseen in Tennessee because we'll just flip it.
Yeah, well, that's another
video.
Story.
So we moved to Tennessee, end up living in the bus and the marshmallow in the driveway of said house because the house was unlivable. Again, another story. But we were that way for a long time until we got the house up to livable standards.
We got one bedroom livable, and I moved into that.
Right.
Because I figured, okay, I'll upgrade to a real room.
Yeah.
Yay.
Yeah.
So I was in there for a while, and then we sort of slowly transitioned into the house. Like I moved Eli into the house, bit by bit as we finished the house. And by that I just mean sort of kind of livable. And then
still a construction zone.
And then eventually we were literally all under one roof for the very first time after I don't know, 5 years together?
5 years.
6 years together.
No, I had my room, and she had her room, and she split that with Eli.
Yep.
So we're still separate there.
Which is so funny because most people are like, "Why you're sharing a room with your kid but not your husband?" I'm like, "Well, the kid doesn't snore." So, and he's used to sharing space and things, and honestly, it worked fine for then. It was perfectly fine.
It worked out great. So from there, we ended up selling the bus, Donkey Lodge. Check out the Donkey Lodge. And moved to Ecuador to a rental house in Loja, which we all had our own rooms again.
And all of the Airbnbs from point A to point B, because there were many, I made sure they all had enough rooms.
Yeah.
Because I thought if we're tired and traveling, it's going to make everything 10 times harder. I will spend the $10 more a night for an extra room.
Yeah, sleep cycles are 2 hours ish on average a person. They can vary quite a bit. But if yours are here and the other person's are here, you're waking up while they're in the middle of theirs, or they're waking up while you're in the middle of theirs. So you interrupt each other's sleep cycle, even if it's subconscious and you don't remember it. Like, you lose those sleep cycles. You lose the benefit of that restful sleep. And
when you're doing something like traveling or moving to a different country, it's the most important thing.
Oh.
I can't imagine anything more important than sleep.
Yeah.
So we prioritized that the entire way.
Yeah.
And then we had separate rooms in the rental house for almost a year.
Yep. Right. So then, after the rental house is
now,
we're living in tents. Tents are not big things. So
they're not.
She has her tent, and it's down there. My tent is sitting up here on the upper deck of the house, separated by 60 feet. We each have our own space. We get to sleep. She sometimes stays up and she writes her Substack, which lovely. You should check it out. But we still have our own space. So when we designed our house, we designed bedrooms for each of us rather than a shared room. We have now 9 years of every sort of crazy configuration. And we've come to realize what research proves out is a little bit of space actually really helps the relationship. I
also think for us particularly, we spend all of our time together. All of it now. All of it. Every bit of it. Which means it's not like you're separate all day and you want to like spend time together at night. No, we're literally always together.
Right. We don't really go anywhere.
We're not lacking time together, I guess is what I'm saying. Like, I think some people think, well, when do you ever see each other? When do you ever spend time together? The entire day.
The other 16 hours, 7 days a week.
Yeah, always. So that little bit of space while you're sleeping, I don't think it really makes a difference negatively. I know it definitely makes a positive difference.
It does. I thought it was weird at first, but honestly, I have different blanket likes than she does.
We sleep at different temperatures.
I sprawl one way, she sprawls the other, she flails viciously sometimes.
Snore like a
She coughs violently.
Okay. Okay, the one time that we did end up having to share a bed for many nights was when we went to Hawaii, which sounds fancy. We're not that fancy. It's the only vacation we've ever really taken. And we ended up, just the way things worked out, we ended up, I didn't sleep well. No, that could have gone vastly better if we had a little bit of space.
Yeah.
I think that was kind of what sealed it for me, was like, oh, okay, no, we really need separate sleeping space. We do so much better. We're so much happier. Yeah.
Yeah. The weird waking up things, it leads to a subconscious.
I was not pleasant. I'll be honest.
But it leads to a subconscious, what's the word? Like angst or like ill feeling towards the partner.
There's resentment, absolutely. I mean, I just, you woke me up. And I think that's true of most people, whether they realize it or not. If you wake someone up in the middle of sleep, they're not usually pleasant about it. I wake up my kid in the middle of sleep in the morning, because that's just how people are.
Yeah. And then we've done the research afterwards, and the research actually like proves that out of like, that's
because we're not crazy.
Like 40% of married couples don't share a bed. Oh, okay. But it works for us. So we designed our house. We have separate rooms. They're close, but they're not the same room. That's just a bit of our history about what led us to that decision.
We did that video, and I went, everyone's going to ask. We're so used to it, it doesn't even occur to us.
Yeah, they ask us all the time, like, why do you sleep in separate? But like, what's wrong? Is your relationship dead? Is it frigid? And I'm like, no,
we've
actually
always slept like this. We're great. We don't need to share that space at all.
Yeah.
And I think that if more couples probably tried that, it may solve a lot of issues. Because sleep, I mean, there's 1,000 studies out there. Everyone knows how important sleep is to every part of your life. So if something's just disturbing your sleep, you can fix it.
Yeah, first thing, like, this night I'm tired, I think I'm cranky, I'm not doing well. Oh, how much sleep are you getting? Well, be honest.
Yeah, and most people probably think they get more sleep than they do.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if sleep's important, boy, that's something to consider.
And then we wake up rested. She greets me with my coffee in the morning. And
I'm up first.
Yeah, she gets up. She gets up earlier than I do. It doesn't wake me up.
There's less tiptoeing, I think, around each other's schedule and sleep, and worrying so much about that. Like I can do what I want at the time that I want, and so can you.
Yep.
And we don't disturb each other.
Yep. It works out. Works out.
Just a little bit of sort of strange storytime history.
Storytime history. We have a bunch of crazy stories. We'll get to them all in time. But that was this one. Hope you enjoyed it.